After the fierce battle, Yuan stated that over the long years, the innate primordial life camp had lost 20 ancestors in conflicts with the cultivator camp and another 15 in clashes with other camps. Although it had produced 32 ancestors, its overall number had still declined. Some ancestors did not want to continue the war because the lords were undying and endless battles brought little benefit. However, the 8 lords demonstrated that individual strength was more important than numbers. And Silent Extinction Ancestor declared that pursuing ultimate strength required the determination to do whatever was necessary, even accepting complete failure and returning to silence. Infinite Snake Ancestor explained that the source world origin was still the most important resource for the innate primordial life camp and the infinite race. Inference Fire Ancestor proposed that the cultivator camp retreat from 3,600 world groups to 1,200. After which the innate primordial life camp would also stop fighting. The 8 lords rejected the proposal, and the ancestors returned to the initial ancestor. Starlight determined that the ancestors hiding within the initial ancestor were waiting for reinforcements. They could not safely retreat because his attainments in time and space would expose their weaknesses, allowing the 8 lords to kill several of them. Starlight predicted that at least 30 ancestors would arrive, potentially creating a force of more than 100 ancestors. He also warned that the 9 emperors would gather if the destiny of the entire tribe was involved. Yuan ordered the 8 lords, Yuan, Jin, Wu Lan, Ming Huang, Nai Ji Yu, Starlight, Mo Man, and Luo Feng, to prioritize defense and maintain their battle formation while waiting for opportunities to counterattack. Any weaker ancestor that revealed its true body would be surrounded and attacked by them. The scene then shifted to the Land of Eternity, a place naturally nurtured by the infinite primordial space where only existences at the undying and undying level could qualify to enter. Even a grain of its dust could suppress a high-level primordial life, while its intangible pressure could crush a world-level primordial life. More than 90% of the ancestors from the innate primordial life camp lacked the qualifications to come there. At an ancient round table, powerful existences watched the distant battlefield and discussed the cultivator camp. They considered the 8th cultivator lord and the cultivator camp extremely special because its members had risen from weak creatures within source worlds and ultimately mastered the essence of supreme power. The white-armored calf Shu praised Starlight and Ming Huang but criticized Jin for attacking him from behind during the battle at the Abyss of Destruction. The Feather Emperor also condemned Golden Lord, Mo Man, and Nai Ji Yu for once joining forces to ambush him. Calf Shu mocked the Feather Emperor over his severe injuries and missing feathers, revealing that he enjoyed finding entertainment among beings at his level. The 8 lords' ability to suppress 73 ancestors, kill 3, and force the remaining 70 to retreat was recognized as proof of their formidable strength. The Feather Emperor admitted that the 8 lords formed an extremely powerful force even within the infinite primordial space, while feeling envious because the group he commanded had only himself as an existence capable of ranking in the Land of Eternity. Meanwhile, other ancient beings became uneasy after taking advantage of the war to seize territory from the cultivator camp. 12 forces had invaded its world groups, with some taking only a few and others seizing more than 100. They had originally believed that the cultivator camp would certainly lose, but the situation had begun to reverse. The strongest invading force was the Ice Peak camp, an alliance of 12 Land of Eternity existences. Although it had far fewer members than the innate primordial life camp, its deterrence was even more terrifying because most of its members had no tribes to protect and therefore acted more domineeringly and without restraint. The Ice Peak camp cared little about the source world origin and instead sought the special and precious resources within the territories. It believed that occupying more than 100 world groups was already showing restraint and that the cultivator camp would not dare wage an all-out war against it. In the Land of Origin source world, Luo Feng stood on a terrace of the Huyang City Lord's mansion. His body had completely transformed, and although his energy reserve was only 1% of his total, it was already comparable to the main battle avatar of Lord Mo Man, the weakest lord. After becoming a lord, Luo Feng understood the many crises facing the cultivator camp but believed they could be resolved one by one. Just as conflict existed wherever people lived on Earth, countless conflicts also existed throughout the infinite primordial space. The innate primordial life camp was the most hostile force, but the cultivator camp also had many conflicts with other camps. Luo Feng knew that Yuan had risen from the most humble beginnings and that the cultivator camp had reached its current position only after enduring countless struggles. With the appearance of lords such as Starlight Lord greatly improving its situation. As a lord with an infinitely long lifespan, Luo Feng had enough time to continue fighting and believed in the future of the cultivator camp. Because he had been born from the land of origin source world. Its source world origin did not reject him. His power easily penetrated the origin, allowing him to refine and completely control the entire source world, which became like another physical body to him. Nothing within the land of origin source world remained hidden from Luo Feng. Including the time river, countless creatures rose and fell within it, and even the timelines of those who had died continued to exist as records of their former existence. Luo Feng could lift dead creatures from the time river, extend their timelines, and allow them to continue existing eternally within the source world and the braided cage. He saw many familiar figures, both powerful and weak, including his teacher Mountain sitting guest during his time as God King Jin. At this moment, every regret could be remedied, and Luo Feng realized that this was the most wonderful aspect of becoming a lord. The first holy land of the innate primordial life camp is the infinite world, home to the infinite great serpent clan, which has more than 10 ancestors. The second is the giant god realm, a special world where all life is born as world-level primordial life. The giant god race is the second largest group, with 10 members having reached the ancestor level. The incarnations of the infinite snake ancestor, silent extinction ancestor, inference fire ancestor, and infinite ancestor arrived at the giant god realm to seek help from the giant god emperor. The giant god emperor is one of the 9 emperors, the leader of the giant god race, and one of the largest and most powerful existences in the infinite primordial world. In terms of direct frontal power, it is considered the strongest among the 9 emperors, although its ability to protect itself is weaker and Yuan is particularly capable of restraining it. The infinite snake ancestor explained that the cultivator camp now had a new lord who had joined forces with the other 8 lords, making the situation extremely difficult. The giant god emperor then summoned the black tide ancestor and primordial beast ancestor, 2 other emperors and unique existences who had close ties with it. The infinite snake ancestor stressed that this battle could not be lost, because defeat would severely damage the prestige and intimidating power of the innate primordial life camp. The giant god emperor agreed to participate in this battle but stated that they would withdraw afterward. The infinite snake ancestor also intended to end the war after victory, hoping to use a defeat of the 8 lords to prove to the entire infinite primordial space that the infinite primordial life camp remained the strongest. The primordial beast ancestor then asked about the new lord. A multi-clawed exotic beast revealed that Luo Feng had been born in the origin world of the Dark World group and had cultivated for an extremely short time. He had reached the extreme under the braided cage in less than 10,000 epochs and then directly become a lord in less than 2,000 more epochs. This shocked the infinite snake ancestor, the giant god emperor, the black tide ancestor, and the primordial beast ancestor. No information even proved that Luo Feng had once become a world-level primordial, and his homeland source world had only been refined after he participated in the battle. The giant god emperor concluded that Luo Feng's talent and potential exceeded those of the previous 7 lords, making him extremely dangerous if given more time to grow. The silent extinction ancestor pointed out that although the cultivator camp was becoming stronger, the innate primordial life camp was also growing. The 2 great camps each possessed their own advantages. The cultivator camp had countless source worlds, a continuous supply of younger powers, and the possibility of producing new lords, while the innate primordial life camp possessed the vast infinite primordial space and countless innate primordial lives, allowing new ancestors to emerge much faster than new lords. Both camps understood that the other was their greatest opponent and therefore fought each other most fiercely. The giant god emperor decided that they must take advantage of Luo Feng's inexperience and destroy the cultivator camp in one decisive battle. The sooner they set out, the better. Soon, the giant god emperor, primordial beast ancestor, black tide ancestor, and more than 30 other ancestors gathered, bringing the total to 35 ancestors. They crossed multiple timelines toward the cultivator territory. During the journey, some ancestors criticized the infinite snake ancestor for pushing the cultivator camp too hard. Even if all the cultivator territories were destroyed, the seven lords would no longer have territorial concerns and could become completely mad, continuously seeking revenge because of the enormous hatred between them. However, the infinite snake ancestor acted for the sake of the infinite race, whose fastest path to growth was consuming source world origins. Unlike the giant god race, which could slowly absorb primordial force, the giant god emperor, black tide ancestor, and primordial beast ancestor were individually flawed, but their abilities perfectly complemented one another when they joined forces, eliminating their weaknesses and making them comparable to three powerful entities from the land of eternity. The movement of 35 ancestors created terrifying fluctuations that could be sensed throughout the infinite primordial space. Various forces believed that only the cultivator camp and the ice peak camp could possibly withstand such a force. The 8 lords of the cultivator camp had previously been capable of suppressing 73 ancestors, but the innate primordial life camp was now mobilizing more than 100 ancestors. With the 9 emperors at the core, in the cultivator territory, the initial ancestor and numerous ancestors were restoring their strength while waiting for reinforcements. While the 8 lords formed a powerful battle array, Yuan sensed that the 35 ancestors had set out, and Starlight Lord warned that the combined strength of the giant god emperor, black tide ancestor, and primordial beast ancestor was comparable to 3 powerful entities from the land of eternity. Although the cultivator camp possessed superior coordination through Starlight Lord's ability to observe numerous future timelines, his spacetime domain, and Yuan's formation, the ancestor side had overwhelming numbers and extraordinary strength, especially with the 9 emperors acting together. Both sides understood that victory was crucial. Starlight Lord stated that winning the battle would make everything easier in the future, while Jin declared that they had to win. Luo Feng knew that he was the key factor in the battle because he was the newly advanced lord whose abilities were least understood by the outside world. The 8 lords waited quietly as the innate primordial life camp prepared to launch its attack. Among the 9 emperors, Initial and Mother of Spacetime were included because of their undying status. Although their offensive abilities ranked from the middle to the lower levels among the ancestors, the other 7, however, possessed extremely terrifying strength. At the appointed moment, Initial Ancestor erupted with dazzling light that covered a vast area, revealing 35 previously hidden ancestors. In total, 105 ancestors gathered under the leadership of the 9 emperors. Excluding only a few newly advanced, disobedient, or severely injured ancestors, they immediately launched a coordinated assault with the highest level of power they possessed, directing their attack at the 8 cultivator lords. The combined power of the 105 ancestors overwhelmed the 8 lords. Although the lords' power and domain, supported by their battle formation, resisted the attack, they could only slightly weaken it before the terrifying force struck Wu Lan and Luo Feng. Golden Lord, Lord Moman, Lord Mingwang, and Lord Naijiu were unable to withstand the combined power of so many ancestors. While Yuan and Starlight could only evade it, Wu Lan and Luo Feng were forced to endure the overwhelming assault. Wu Lan laughed excitedly despite suffering continuous injuries, as her massive body formed through the primordial material Dao continued to sustain damage. The ancestors deliberately avoided Wu Lan and focused on Luo Feng. Wu Lan could therefore block only about half of the incoming power, while the remaining half struck Luo Feng directly. Numerous powerful forces corroded, destroyed, and tore apart his body. His protective energy layer was repeatedly penetrated, while his 1,080,000,000 origins continuously replenished his energy. His body suffered many wounds and became stained with blood, but his physical body represented only one portion of his energy, whereas the 1,080,000,000 origins represented 10 portions. Even with severe physical injuries, Luo Feng could partially restore his body from the void through his terrifying life force, while the origins continued recovering him. His physical condition therefore remained within a bearable range. Although the energy consumption of his protective layer was significant, Luo Feng calculated that approximately 5% of his energy reserve was consumed within the span of a breath. Previously, when facing 73 ancestors, he had consumed only 1% of the energy reserve in the battle formation during the same period. The current consumption had increased 5-fold, showing that the damage grew rapidly as the combined power increased. If the ancestors' power reached a certain limit, Luo Feng's main battle avatar could also be destroyed. Nevertheless, the ancestors were surprised that Luo Feng could withstand their assault and continuously maintain himself in peak condition despite his body being less resilient than Wu Lan's. The lords then launched their counterattack. Lord Mo Man burned his main battle avatar, transforming the vast space-time occupied by the ancestors into countless vibrating musical notes. The entire space-time became a song that echoed directly into the souls of the ancestors, producing an invisible attack against both body and soul. Because it was a group attack, none of the ancestors could avoid it. Several of the more than 10 ancestors who had been severely injured during the previous battle had not fully recovered after 10 days of rest, and 3 of them suffered a renewed worsening of their injuries. Jin then burned all his power into 13 black spheres, which appeared among the ancestors and instantly erupted, obliterating the surrounding area. Brilliant golden lightning followed, striking the ancestors one by one and locking onto them so they could not escape. However, the 9 emperors had already understood the Lord's abilities and had prepared countermeasures. Since they could not stop the Lord's lethal attacks, they chose not to defend against them. Infinite Ancestor worked together with Mother of Spacetime and Initial Ancestor to rescue some severely injured ancestors, while the other 6 powerful 9 emperors led the remaining ancestors in a full-force assault. Infinite Snake Ancestor then targeted Wu Lan. Its enormous body became blurred and expanded to a size thousands or even tens of thousands of times larger, eventually becoming larger than all the ancestors combined. Because of its mastery of the concept of infinity, it could grow infinitely large, with its greatest size exceeding an entire world cluster. And it could also merge with the infinite void to become completely undying and imperishable. Although it would lose its offensive power in that state, Infinite Snake Ancestor first expanded to cover Wu Lan before rapidly condensing and shrinking, completely trapping her around the abdomen. At the same time, Silent Extinction Ancestor transformed into black light that wrapped around half of Wu Lan's body, while Inference Fire Ancestor took the form of a flaming star that enveloped the other half. The 3 ancestors, all skilled in confinement, joined forces to suppress Wu Lan. Previously, Inference Fire Ancestor alone had been able to devour and confine Wu Lan for about a breath. But now Wu Lan was completely unable to break free despite struggling with all her strength. With Wu Lan restrained, 100 ancestors launched their combined highest-level powers at Luo Feng. 2 severely injured ancestors hid within Initial Ancestor's body, while the remaining 100 ancestors attacked Luo Feng. Although the absence of Infinite Snake Ancestor, Inference Fire Ancestor, and Silent Extinction Ancestor reduced the overall strength of the group by at least 20%, the attack still frightened Luo Feng. Starlight Lord immediately used the spacetime maze. The Infinite Snake Ancestor normally possessed the highest void attainment among the ancestors and had repeatedly clashed with Starlight Lord, affecting his spacetime techniques. However, because Infinite Snake Ancestor was currently fully occupied with suppressing Wu Lan, it could not completely control the void. Mother of Spacetime's void attainment was also inferior to Infinite Snake Ancestor's, while her mastery of time was far below Starlight Lord's. The immense power of the 100 ancestors shattered the spacetime maze through sheer force. But the technique still redirected 3 to 4/10 of the attack. The remaining power then struck the battle formation. After being blocked and weakened by the formation, the attack finally reached Luo Feng. But its power was only about 10% greater than before and remained within a range he could endure. The ancestor side was therefore troubled by Starlight Lord's ability to freely use his spacetime techniques while Infinite Snake Ancestor was occupied with Wu Lan. At that moment, Giant God Emperor, Primordial Beast Ancestor, and Black Tide Ancestor appeared near Luo Feng. Giant God Emperor possessed a massive body several times larger than Wu Lan, covered in black golden scales, with enormous sharp wings and a huge circle of colorful light surrounding it. Endless black mist also permeated the surrounding area. The colorful light domain was created by Primordial Beast Ancestor, one of the 9 emperors. Its body itself formed the most terrifying domain in the infinite primordial space. Within this domain, even Starlight Lord could not manipulate the void and could only escape by using the timeline. The enormous colorful light was actually Primordial Beast Ancestor's body, with every part of the domain consisting of its colorful fur. Outside this domain, Black Tide Ancestor transformed into an endless Black Tide disaster. Its disaster domain was weaker than Primordial Beast Ancestor's. but various disasters continuously descended upon enemies within it. The combined Black Tide disaster domain and primordial beast ancestors' colorful light domain enveloped Luo Feng while Giant God Emperor used its terrifying body. In this state, Giant God Emperor had no obvious weaknesses. Luo Feng slashed with his blade, but the attack was swallowed by the two domains before it could reach Giant God Emperor's body. Giant God Emperor then advanced with its enormous arms and wings. While the two domains simultaneously enveloped Luo Feng, the various disasters of the Black Tide domain could not seriously affect Luo Feng because of his endless life force. However, the combined restraints of the Black Tide domain and the colorful light made every movement extremely difficult. Giant God Emperor's arms and wings then closed around him, preventing him from evading and instantly embracing him. At this time, the Lord side's battle formation was already under enormous pressure from the attack of 100 ancestors. Luo Feng's movement techniques were inferior to those of Starlight Lord and the other lords, and he was also busy resisting the ancestors' encirclement, leaving him unable to hide or escape. The ancestors became excited after successfully entangling Luo Feng and decided to focus on the two lords with the strongest physical bodies, Wu Lan and Luo Feng. Among the 8 lords, the two of them were the most capable of enduring the combined power and were extremely important to the battle formation. Luo Feng was especially valuable because he could rapidly restore his companions to peak condition. Previously, Infinite Snake Ancestor, Silent Extinction Ancestor, and Inference Fire Ancestor had only been able to ensure the confinement of one lord. With Giant God Emperor and the other ancestors joining forces, they could now confine another. After trapping Luo Feng, Giant God Emperor and the others immediately retreated because their enormous bodies and wide-ranging domains interfered with the surrounding ancestors' encirclement. They withdrew into the group of ancestors while continuing to suppress Luo Feng. As Luo Feng entered the midst of the ancestor group, his eyes became cold. Luo Feng then shouted for his body to explode. In an instant, his physical body disappeared and transformed entirely into energy, which was poured into the 1,080,000,000 origins. The origins were already saturated with energy, and the forced infusion caused them to suddenly contract. They then erupted into an endless, dazzling energy storm that instantly tore apart all obstacles and restraints. With the assistance of the primordial beast ancestor and the Black Tide ancestor, the Giant God Emperor had originally managed to restrain Luo Feng. However, Luo Feng suddenly disappeared and transformed into 1,080,000,000 origins. These origins, shining like a brilliant galaxy, naturally formed a formation. This was one of the 3 forbidden techniques Luo Feng had developed based on his own advantages, the origin Great Destruction. All 3 of Luo Feng's forbidden techniques required suitable environments to achieve their greatest effects. They were called forbidden techniques because the cost of using them was extremely high. The 1,080,000,000 origins formed a formation and triggered a chain reaction, instantly transforming into an energy storm capable of destroying everything. The storm tore apart spacetime, and the massive abdomen of the Giant God Emperor, which was closest to the origins, was instantly pierced through. Its enormous body was directly severed. The Giant God Emperor was shocked and furious. At the same time, the dual domains created by the primordial beast ancestor and the Black Tide ancestor were also the first to be struck by the endless energy. Although the dual domains were extremely powerful, even the closest domain was destroyed and annihilated in the face of absolute power, transforming into energy and further fueling the terrifying energy storm. A massive energy storm, resembling a radiant jade disk, erupted from the abdomen of the Giant God Emperor. It tore through the Giant God Emperor's body, pierced through the dual domains, carried even more terrifying energy, and spread in all directions. When the power exceeded a certain limit, it triggered a special reaction. The surrounding space-time was instantly annihilated, and the vast area was transformed into a dazzling ball of light. The dozens of surrounding ancestors did not even have time to react before they were completely submerged by the energy storm. The Giant God Emperor was filled with rage and panic. Part of the dual domains of the primordial beast ancestor and the Black Tide ancestor protected its legs, while another part protected its chest and everything above it. Even at the terrifying center of the explosion, the ultra-powerful dual domains protected the Giant God Emperor from complete destruction. It only lost 1/3 of its body, while the remaining parts were protected and able to merge back together. The giant god emperor admitted that it had been fortunate to have the assistance of the primordial beast ancestor and the black tide ancestor. Otherwise, it would have died in the explosion. Unlike Luo Feng and Wulan, who were lords and had bodies created by themselves, allowing them to pursue the utmost extremes, the giant god emperor was born from the infinite primordial space and had grown naturally alongside the transformation of its life core. Although its body was enormous and its explosive power was among the strongest even among the 9 emperors, its ability to preserve its life was comparatively weaker. The energy density of its body was also inferior to that of Wulan and Luo Feng. Therefore, when faced with such terrifying power at close range, the giant god emperor would have been completely annihilated without the protection of its 2 companions. The primordial beast ancestor was also surprised that Luo Feng still possessed such a move. The explosion had costed approximately 1/10 of its body. Its body was the strongest domain in the entire infinite primordial space, and together with the black tide ancestor, it excelled in domain techniques. When cooperating with the giant god emperor, the 3 of them complemented one another and possessed astonishing deterrence. The black tide ancestor also lost nearly 1/10 of its body. Although its domain was positioned on the outermost layer, the damage it suffered was similar to that of the primordial beast ancestor. The giant god emperor, the primordial beast ancestor, and the black tide ancestor had all suffered a significant setback. They became much more cautious and began carefully observing everything around them. The terrifying energy storm also swept through dozens of surrounding ancestors. Their life preservation abilities were far inferior to those of the combined trio of the giant god emperor, although some of them were slightly farther away and suffered somewhat less impact. The consequences were still extremely tragic. A total of 26 ancestors were heavily injured by the terrifying force. At that moment, Lord Mingwang did not hesitate to burn his main combat avatar. 26 incredibly dazzling golden bolts of lightning descended simultaneously. The attacks were unavoidable and struck directly at the 26 heavily injured ancestors. The already gravely wounded ancestors were terrified by Lord Mingwang's all-out attack. Although their companions attempted to rescue them, the golden lightning still struck them. 5 of the gravely wounded ancestors were unable to protect their life cores. Their cores cracked apart under the golden lightning, and all 5 died on the spot. The other 21 ancestors were also gravely wounded and fell into panic. Endless light enveloped the battlefield and rescued the surviving ancestors. Meanwhile, the corpses of the 5 dead ancestors were quietly moved away by spacetime. The other ancestors present were shocked that 5 ancestors had died. In previous battles, some of them had also fallen, but those deaths had generally occurred after prolonged fighting, with the weaker ancestors being eliminated first. This time, however, everything had happened too suddenly. 26 ancestors had been heavily injured in an instant, followed immediately by the deaths of 5 of them. Moreover, the 5 ancestors who died were among the stronger ancestors rather than the weakest. Their deaths were purely the result of being too close to the giant god emperor, the primordial beast ancestor, and the black tide ancestor when the terrifying explosion occurred. The power of the explosion had struck them too severely. The ancestors found it difficult to accept that the deaths had occurred because of bad luck and being too close to the explosion. They could accept being eliminated in war because they were the weakest, but they could not accept dying purely because of misfortune. If 5 ancestors had died because of bad luck this time, then who would be next? At that moment, the killing intent on the battlefield surged once again. The ancestors roared and charged forward, shouting for the cultivator lords to die. The battle escalated after 5 ancestors perished and 21 severely injured ancestors were taken away by the infinite ancestor. The remaining 70-odd ancestors, filled with rage and some fear, launched reckless attacks, while the giant god emperor and the other 2 powerful existences also struck in anger. Without Wu Lan and Luo Feng, the cultivator lord battle formation struggled to withstand the combined assault. Starlight Lord attempted to use the spacetime maze to redirect the incoming attacks, but Infinite Snake Ancestor temporarily released his suppression of Wu Lan, allowing Inference Fire Ancestor and Silent Extinction Ancestor to restrain Wu Lan for a short time. Infinite Snake Ancestor fully controlled the void, preventing the formation of the spacetime maze. The attacks of the 70-odd ancestors and the 3 giant god emperors intertwined into a terrifying wave of highest level power. Starlight Lord burned part of his main battle avatar and forcibly shifted away 3/10 of the incoming power despite the void's influence. Yuan's formation resisted and reduced another portion of the attack. Lord Naijiu transformed into a colossal entity with 9 enormous heads and actively devoured the remaining power. Although his body rapidly recovered as it fragmented, the combined attacks of more than 70 ancestors were too powerful. Even after multiple reductions, nearly half of the total force still struck him, causing his body to shatter within a single breath. At that moment, Luo Feng's 1,800,000,000 origins, which had transformed into the Great Destruction Storm, transmitted back over a great distance. Although the storm had become extremely weak, its faint power suddenly contracted and condensed inside the Cultivator Lord battle formation. In almost an instant, Luo Feng reappeared as a massive black-haired figure standing before Lord Naijiu and resisting the remaining attacks. He told Naijiu to leave the rest to him. Lord Naijiu, whose body had been fragmented, smiled and remarked that he had nearly been blown apart in just one breath. The 8 lords understood Luo Feng's techniques and knew about his forbidden technique. Origin Great Destruction. Although the technique completely unleashed his power, Luo Feng's strength possessed powerful spirituality and could recover energy from the void after the destructive force dissipated. Every unit of his energy contained immense spirituality. Allowing his scattered power to gather again, Luo Feng sensed that he still had 2/10 of his energy reserve remaining. Although his physical body appeared intact, the newly formed 1,800,000,000 origins were extremely weak, causing his energy absorption speed to decrease greatly. The stronger his energy reserve, the faster he could absorb energy, while a weaker state resulted in slower recovery. A weak avatar formed from only a thought might need an entire day to recover even 1% of its energy reserve. At that moment, Luo Feng's recovery speed was only 1/10 of his peak speed. However, the ancestors did not know Luo Feng's actual recovery speed. They only saw him reappear and stand before Wu Lan while resisting the remaining power. They were shocked that he had recovered after previously transforming into an endless destructive energy storm. The ancestors began to question whether continuing the battle was worthwhile, although Luo Feng's energy reserve had fallen to only about 2/10, and they believed they still possessed enough strength to crush the 8 lords. They also realized that the lords were extremely difficult to kill permanently. Even if their main battle avatars were destroyed, they could eventually recover and rise again. Many ancestors began to believe that there was no need to continue the war. The original reason for the ceasefire in the infinite primordial space had been the emergence of a new lord. And even winning the battle would have limited significance. They questioned whether preserving their dignity was worth sacrificing more ancestors. Previously, many ancestors had been willing to participate because the 9 emperors had gathered and more than 100 ancestors had joined forces, giving them an absolute advantage. However, after realizing that misfortune could result in death, the number of ancestors opposing the war rapidly increased. Infinite Snake Ancestor and the others sensed that the situation was becoming unfavorable, as even some ancestors who had always followed them were now opposing the battle. The death of 5 ancestors had been especially unjust, since reaching the ancestor level was extremely difficult and such powerful beings were normally very difficult to kill. Infinite Snake Ancestor realized that they had suffered losses because they had failed to understand the strength of the newly emerged Lord Luo Feng. He concluded that they should first fully understand Luo Feng and act only after gaining absolute certainty. Since more than 30 ancestors now opposed continuing the battle, Infinite Snake Ancestor decided that the war had to cease for the time being. As Infinite Snake Ancestor, Silent Extinction Ancestor, and Inference Fire Ancestor relinquished their suppression, Wu Lan regained his freedom and immediately returned to the battle formation. Yuan, Starlight Lord, Luo Feng, Jin, Wu Lan, Ming Huang, Naijiu, and Mo Man noticed that the ancestors had stopped attacking. Although Luo Feng's recovery ability had been greatly weakened, he still prioritized restoring his companions to their peak condition. The Infinite Snake Ancestor therefore declared that the battle would end for now, with the true victor to be determined in the next confrontation. Yuan agreed, confident that the situation would become even better if another lord joined the cultivators in the future. The ancestors then departed through space and time, carried by the mother of spacetime with countless claws. While the 8 lords watched them leave, Yuan stated that the ceasefire was only temporary. Lord Mo Man explained that the ancestors' overall strength still surpassed that of the lords. In an earlier assault, he, Jin, and Ming Huang had burned their main battle avatars and achieved some results. But the ancestors had been prepared this time, greatly reducing the assault's effectiveness. Ultimately, Luo Feng's forbidden technique had been what created the opportunity for victory. Luo Feng remarked that the ancestors' decision to separate him from the battle formation had instead given him an opportunity. Starlight pointed out that both absorbing the source world origin and facing the threat of death could lead the ancestors to evolve. So some ancestors were likely to break through after this war. The lords would continue progressing, and the ancestors would also continue advancing. Mastering the highest level power was not the limit for the ancestors. They could continue evolving until reaching the level of the infinite snake ancestor and initial, representing the ultimate level in the path of undying and undying. Ming Huang confidently stated that even if the ancestors advanced further, they still could not match the cultivators. The gap between the two sides had gradually narrowed from the enormous difference that existed in the early days. Yuan suggested returning to the land of origin to carefully study the corpses of the ancestors, declaring that regardless of the outcome, the war had ended. Wu Lan noted that after resisting the joint attack of more than 100 ancestors, dealing with the other camps would be much easier. Jin happily remarked that they could finally relax for a while and reminded Luo Feng that, as promised, he had to explore the mysterious land with him after the war. Yuan stated that many worlds within the cultivator territory were still occupied by other camps, so they should first reclaim all their territory before Jin and Luo Feng went exploring. Jin agreed that he was not in a hurry. When Luo Feng asked where Jin planned to explore, Jin revealed that it was the Abyss of Destruction. He had already visited it many times but had always lacked a powerful companion. So he immediately sent Luo Feng detailed information about the Abyss of Destruction. The 8 lords continued chatting leisurely as they returned to the land of origin.